Ladies and gentlemen, welcome again to Ibrahim Traoré's era. Something big has just happened in Burkina Faso, and the entire world is shocked. This week, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the fearless leader of the revolution, made a decision that shook the foundations of global power. He has officially banned the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and its controversial program, Target Malaria, from ever operating again in Burkina Faso. Let me explain for you to understand. Target Malaria is a scientific initiative funded by the Gates Foundation. Their goal is to reduce malaria deaths in Africa by controlling mosquito populations, since mosquitoes are the carriers of the disease. They create genetically modified mosquitoes in laboratories, then release them into the environment so they would eat and destroy natural mosquito populations over time. According to Bill Gates himself, Africa was chosen because malaria has been a major problem for the continent for centuries, and he wants to save lives. But let's be real, family. For years, foreign organizations backed by billionaires and so-called philanthropists have used Africa as their laboratory. They come smiling, with promises of aid and help, but behind their projects lie experiments they would never attempt in Europe or America. Target Malaria is one of these. On paper, it sounded like a miracle, but in reality, nobody knows the long-term impact of releasing genetically engineered mosquitoes into Africa's fragile ecosystem. What happens when they cross borders, when they multiply uncontrollably, when they interfere with crops, livestock, or even human health? The truth is simple: nobody can predict it. And yet these foreign organizations were comfortable gambling with African lives as long as the risk wasn't in their own backyard. Well, Traoré said, enough is enough. He listened to farmers, to scientists, to spiritual leaders, to ordinary citizens who raised concerns. And in a move that shocked the entire NGO industry, he ordered the Gates Foundation and Target Malaria to pack up and leave Burkina Faso immediately. Do you see what just happened here? For the first time in decades, an African president did not bow to billionaires, did not beg for grants, did not pretend these outsiders were saviors. Traoré looked them straight in the eye and declared, "Burkina Faso is not your testing ground. Our people are not guinea pigs. If you want to play with modified mosquitoes, try it in Seattle or London, not in Ouagadougou." Understand this: the Gates Foundation is not just another NGO. It is one of the most powerful organizations on the planet, with billions of dollars, networks of scientists, and influence that reaches Washington, Brussels, and beyond. For a small West African nation to stand up to such a giant is revolutionary. But that is what makes Traoré different. He does not measure power in dollars or headlines. He measures it in truth, in justice, and in the will of his people. By shutting the doors on the Gates Foundation, he sent a message not only to Burkina Faso, but to the entire African continent. The era of fake aid and foreign control is over. And this is not an isolated move. Just months ago, Traoré's government shut down the licenses of 31 international NGOs after investigations revealed many were spies for foreign intelligence, pipelines for destabilization, or secret financiers of terrorism in the country. They arrived under the name of aid, but left behind destruction. Traoré simply do not trust any foreign NGO, including Gates Foundation. So when Traoré expelled the Gates Foundation, he wasn't acting blindly. He was reinforcing a promise: Burkina Faso will be sovereign, or it will be nothing. Now think about this, family. If Burkina Faso can stand firm against billionaires and Western giants, what stops other African nations from doing the same? What happens if Mali, Niger, Guinea, and others follow suit, saying no to exploitation, no to experiments, and no to manipulation? This is the fear of the West. This is why they call Traoré dangerous, because his courage is contagious. One man's defiance is waking up an entire continent. And this, believe me, is just the beginning. Let's look beyond the surface. What happened with Gates Foundation and Target Malaria is not a random event. It is part of a much deeper pattern that has enslaved Africa for decades. Foreign aid is always presented as generosity. They claim it is kindness, that the West cares about African poverty, diseases, and struggles. But when you dig deeper, when you follow the money, when you examine the side effects, you see the truth. Aid is often a weapon disguised as a gift. Take this very case. Target Malaria was not about saving lives. It was about using Africa as a laboratory for experiments that could reshape nature itself. If this was such a miraculous solution, why wasn't it tested first in Paris, in New York, in Brussels, Why only in Burkina Faso? The answer is clear. Because in their eyes, African lives are expendable. Our children are numbers. Our land is open space. Our governments, at least in the past, were so corrupt they would sign away sovereignty for a handful of dollars. But with Traoré, the story has changed. That's why the noise from the West is so loud. Because one leader has pulled the curtain back. Let me give you the reality. Burkina Faso has more NGOs per capita than some Western countries. And yet for decades the country remained poor, underdeveloped, and plagued by terrorism. Why? Because many of these NGOs were never here to help. They were here to control. They came with the mask of charity but carried the agenda of espionage. Investigations have revealed shocking truths. Some of these humanitarian organizations were directly financing terrorist groups. They would distribute food in the morning and hand out weapons at night. They would pretend to give humanitarian aid while secretly sending GPS coordinates of Burkina Faso military bases to foreign embassies. So when Traoré banned the Gates Foundation, it wasn't just about mosquitoes. It was a declaration. Burkina Faso is no longer for sale. And let's not forget the psychological warfare of foreign aid. For years Africans were told, you cannot survive without us. You need our vaccines. You need our food. You need our money. But here's the truth. Africa is the richest continent on earth. Burkina Faso has gold, fertile land, and millions of young people ready to work. Mali has gold. Niger has uranium. Guinea has bauxite. But they kept us dependent by convincing us we were poor. They give aid today, and tomorrow they take resources worth 10 times more. They give food aid, but it kills local farmers who cannot compete. They give loans, but they attach conditions that force our leaders to sell our land, privatize our industries, and surrender control. What Traoré is doing now is refusing that entire system. He is investing in agriculture, mining, and education. He is telling Burkina Faso, we will build with our own hands. We will not wait for outsiders to poison us while pretending to feed us. And this, family, is why the West is shaking. Because if Burkina Faso can say no, others will follow. If Mali says no, if Niger says no, if Guinea says no, the entire aid industry collapses. Billions of dollars that flow through NGOs, feeding offices in Europe, paying foreign salaries, buying media influence, will dry up. What will they do then? They will smear Traoré. They will call him anti-science. They will brand him as backward. But understand, what he did is not backward. It is revolutionary. Because many NGOs are not neutral. They are the soft weapons of foreign powers. They come with smiles and promises, but behind the smiles are maps, files, and intelligence reports. Burkina Faso has exposed this truth, and Traoré's words still echo across Africa. This land is not for experiments. This people is not for manipulation. Burkina Faso belongs to Burkina Faso, and we alone will shape our destiny. And already, from Bamako to Niamey, from Conakry to Kinshasa, Africans are asking, if Burkina Faso can do it, why not us? That question is the nightmare of the West. But for Africa, it is the beginning of freedom. Traoré has shattered one of the greatest lies, that Africa needs Western aid to survive. No, we do not. We need our land, our resources, our unity, and above all, fearless leaders. And that is what Traoré has proven. Leadership is not about bowing to dollars. It is about defending dignity. It is about choosing sovereignty over slavery, truth over deception, life over experiments. Burkina Faso is not only fighting for itself, it is fighting for Africa's soul. Every time Traoré says no to exploitation, he says yes to Africa's future. And whether they like it or not, the old game of fake aid and hidden agendas is coming to an end. This is Ibrahim Traoré's era. Like, share, and subscribe, because the revolution has only just begun.